If you haven't heard of Jim Thorpe, or if you don't know much about his background, then this video is going to blow you away. Because not only was he an incredible Olympian, but he is without a doubt one of the greatest athletes of all time. So today, let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Thorpe. Gold at the Olympics. At the 1912 Summer Olympics in Stockholm, two new events were introduced into the program, the classic pentathlon and the decathlon. We know and love both of these events today, though they had slightly different formats when they were first introduced, but almost regardless of how they were made up, Jim Thorpe was going to dominate them. Because he was such an incredible all-around athlete, he was able to outright win many of the components and finish strongly in the others. For example, in the pentathlon, he outright won 4 of the 5 events and finished 3rd in the javelin, even though he had never done the javelin before. Can you imagine an athlete showing up at the games today and doing that? It's wild. He won gold in both the pentathlon and decathlon, and as an extra bonus, he also received 2 challenge prizes, which had been donated by King Gustav V of Sweden for the decathlon and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia for the pentathlon. How cool is that? It's probably not true, but several sources recount that when awarding Thorpe his prize, King Gustav said, quote, "You, sir, are the greatest athlete in the world," end quote. To which Thorpe replied, quote, "Thanks, King," end quote. I don't care if that's not true. That's an amazing story. By winning these 2 gold medals, Jim Thorpe also became the first Native American gold medalist for the United States. This broke an important cultural barrier and set a critical precedent for generations of future athletes. Oh, and because he's Jim Thorpe, he also competed in the high jump and the long jump at these same Olympics, likely because he was a beast and just felt like it. He qualified for the high jump final, eventually finishing 4th, and ended up 7th in the long jump. He returned home to a ticker tape parade in New York City, and yeah, I'd say he deserved it. However, there was Olympic drama on the horizon for him. Let's take a quick step to the side to talk about it. Stripped and reinstated by the Olympics. When Jim Thorpe competed in the 1912 Olympics, very strict rules were in place regarding amateurism for competing athletes. It seems quaint now, but at one time this was taken extremely seriously. You couldn't be a paid athlete. And I mean, it was super strict. Athletes who received money for competitions were paid as sports teachers or had competed previously against professionals were not considered amateurs. They were barred from competition. And given how much of an athlete Jim Thorpe was, you can probably see where this is going. After it was revealed that he had made a couple of bucks playing sports while on break from college, the Amateur Athletic Union, or AAU, got involved, and when asked, Thorpe admitted earning money from sports. The AAU withdrew his amateur status retroactively, and the International Olympic Committee soon followed suit, meaning he was stripped of his Olympic gold medals. Now, before you get too bent out of shape about this, there is a happy ending. It's pretty clear to all of us now that this wasn't a big deal, and even the AAU and IOC didn't follow its own rules in stripping him of his medals. That's a whole other administrative story, but we're going to skip that for today. So after a while, and I mean a long while, like in the early 1980s, and after a ton of lobbying and protest, his gold medals were reinstated, and by 2020, he was again recognized as the sole winner from 1912. So all's well that ends well. He's an Olympic champion. But Jim Thorpe was so much more than that. Let's start talking about what takes him from being a great Olympian to being an all-time greatest athlete. College football. While it's plainly obvious that Jim Thorpe was a monster at track and field, his coaches weren't so sure he could play American football. After all, it was an extremely physical sport, nothing like the high jump or track running. But that proved not to be an issue, as old Jim just ran straight through and around everyone. He was a total bruiser, and he could, of course, play every position, like he was the decathlete of American football. At Carlisle, his college in Pennsylvania, he was the running back, defensive back, punter, and place kicker. He scored all the points for his team when they registered an upset win over Harvard, at the time one of the strongest teams in the brand new NCAA. In 1912, he was a first-team All-American, and he was basically single-handedly responsible for Carlisle winning the NCAA championship. And note the year, 1912, the same year he whipped the Olympics too. I'm telling you, this guy was wild. There's a great quote I'm going to read here. Someone who played against him in college said, quote, "Here and there are some people who are supremely endowed. My memory goes back to Jim Thorpe. He never practiced in his life, and he could do anything better than any football player I ever saw." End quote. That's quite the quote. You know who said that? You know who played against him? President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he said that in 1961. So if we stopped there, that would be a pretty solid athletic career, huh? But old Jim Thorpe ain't even close to being done. Let's keep going. Professional football. After a college football career like his, it's not a surprise he eventually went pro. He started playing professional football in 1913, and by 1915, he had joined the Canton Bulldogs, where he earned $250 a game, which was a huge wage at the time. Obviously, he was awesome. Obviously, he dominated. Obviously, everyone thought he was the best ever, but you knew that already, right? In 1920, Canton was one of 14 teams to form the American Professional Football Association, which eventually became this little league called the National Football League, or NFL. You may have heard of it. And as if that professional football career wasn't enough as a player, he was also the first president of the league, basically what we'd call the commissioner today. But he still played for Canton during this time. What a dude. And as a testament to his enduring legacy, he was elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1963, one of 17 players elected in its charter class. So surely that's it, right? That's all he did in sports. Come on, you know he's not done. Let's keep going. Professional baseball. Yep, he played professional baseball too. This guy is wild. In 1913, Jim Thorpe was offered a starting position with the St. Louis Browns, who at the time were at the very bottom of the American League. But Jim Thorpe is a winner, so he instead opted to sign a contract with the New York Giants, who were the defending National League champions from the previous year. He played in a handful of games for them that year, and they repeated as National League champions, but lost in the World Series. Can you imagine if this guy also bagged a World Series too? It's crazy. After that, he, along with the Giants and the Chicago White Sox, did a world tour. He was the celebrity of the tour, bringing up the box office sales, and he also played a little ball, obviously. He met with Pope Pius X and played before 20,000 people in London, including King George V. He sporadically played for a few more years. He bounced around between a few teams in the major and minor leagues before hanging up his cleats for good in 1922. And for those of you who think he was just some showpiece that owners put on the field to sell tickets, you better think again. After nearly 300 career major league games, he finished with a lifetime batting average of .252, which isn't amazing, but it's not too shabby either. And remember, baseball was like his fourth best sport. He's incredible. So now he's done, right? That's it, Lameless. You must be finished, right? Right? Professional basketball. Come on, this is getting crazy, but I swear it's true. It's like he was just completing side quests at this point. Jim Thorpe also was a professional, or at least a semi-professional basketball player. But hilariously, historians weren't even aware that he was a professional basketball player until evidence surfaced that documented his career. It was in an old book they found in 2005. It turns out in 1926, he was the main feature of a barnstorming basketball team called the world-famous Indians of LaRue, Ohio. The team traveled around for at least 2 years across multiple states. But unfortunately, even though the team was documented in some local newspapers at the time, not much is known about his playing career, his statistics, or other related items. But I'm betting after this list of sporting accomplishments that he had, he was at least, kind of good. His non-athletic career. Since sports didn't pay a ton of money at the time and compounded by having 8 children across 3 marriages, as well as not being great with money, Jim Thorpe had to take other jobs after his sports careers ended. He worked a variety of gigs, including as a construction worker, a ditch digger, a security guard, a bouncer, and even as an extra in Hollywood movies. In the midst of the Great Depression, he sold the movie rights to his life to MGM for $1,500, and this would eventually turn into the 1951 film Jim Thorpe All-American, starring Burt Reynolds. Sadly, he had to be admitted to hospital late in life as a charity case, and he died completely broke in 1953. But despite his troubles outside of the athletic arena, it cannot be denied that Jim Thorpe is one of, if not the greatest athlete of all time. There wasn't a sport he touched that he couldn't do well, even to the point of Olympic gold. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video and maybe even learned something new. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Otherwise, I will talk to you again soon, friends.